Ladies, gentlemen, and Spiritborn of all ages, Vessel of Hatred is releasing in just a few days, and with this, the new class, Spiritborn. I've had the pleasure of playing it early for the last week or so, and through this, I tried to mess with as many different things as possible. I checked in with what other people were trying as well, and generally just tried to make the most out of this opportunity to just absorb as much about Spiritborn as I physically could. So today we're going to go over a sort of general guide to the class, how it will play, and what to expect in Season 6 specifically. First things first, Spiritborn will have the most build variety of any of the classes, and it will have a lot of builds in the sort of upper bracket of performance too. So if you're someone who likes having choice or likes feeling rewarded for trying new things and experimenting, Spiritborn will be an incredible class for you to play. It has depth like none of the others, it has a lot of cool ways to synergize different parts of it, but importantly, every way that I've built it has just felt fun to actually go through the world and experience and press buttons with. Starting with the basics, then it's worth noting right at this beginning here that Spiritborn will actually get a few unique dialogue lines in the expansion story campaign due to the different context of your character from the original 5 base classes, of course. The Spiritborn does also have a unique class mechanic unlock quest like the others, but I would say that the Spiritborn's is the coolest, the most different, but also the longest one, so I won't spoil the cool bits, but be prepared for that. Once you do that, you unlock the Spirit Hall mechanic, and this is a very important base of how Spiritborn will function. There's the primary spirit choice and the secondary spirit choice. Each of these has 4 options, and you can mix and match them however you choose for a ton of different possibilities. They each have their own uses, but the vast majority of builds in the game will use only a few of them really if they want to be effective, because some of them just are better than others in the current balance. So we'll talk about these sort of best to worst. Best primary Spirit Hall choice is Gorilla. This applies your Thorns as damage with every attack that you do. There are a few extremely potent Thorns based builds with the class, but even on the builds that don't actively build Thorns as a stat, this is still the best choice because firstly, it gives you barrier per hit, and with high attack speed that creates a ton of survivability. Secondly, it gives you the Gorilla skill tag on all skills. All Spirit Hall primary Guardian choices give you their skill tags to all skills, but Gorilla is exceptional for a specific reason, and that is the aspect of unyielding hits as a legendary. This is the individually strongest tool that Spiritborn has access to, really. This increases weapon damage by a percentage of your armor value. The conversion rate is extremely favorable, especially when you put it on an amulet or something even like a weapon, but we'll go into why you would generally want your weapon slot for other things a little bit later. You can take this and pair it with a ton of different armor value increases in other places in your gear, in your paragon, especially deep endgame where you have more control over your gear and masterworking especially and things like that. On the review build, this aspect was actually uncapped in the bonus it can give you, but we've been told by the developers that this will be capped at 1500 bonus weapon damage come live servers. 1500 bonus weapon damage though is still adding more than 200% weapon damage over a regular item power 800 ancestral two-handed weapon, so this is still stupidly strong. This, however, requires a Gorilla skill to hit once every 3 seconds to keep the effect active, so primary Gorilla Spirit Hall is a big choice for that reason. Also, the Gorilla's name is Wumba, and that's important too. Before moving on, I feel like I should say that Gorilla feels leagues ahead as the best choice for your primary Spirit Hall outside of like super specific builds, so the rest of these are just sort of the best of what's remaining. The second best one then is probably Jaguar, though this one is a bit more build specific. This makes it so every 15th Jaguar skill that you use causes a pulse for a portion of the damage that you did in the last half a second. This sort of asks you to do a lot of burst damage, but also just with a lot of attack speed too. Being 15% of the damage done means even if it's a large boost, even if you just did a large bit of burst, it won't have a massive hit effect to follow it, so you sort of gain more by just triggering the bonus more often with smaller hits. In other words, leaning into attack speed is good with this, which is a large part of what the Jaguar skills are about anyways, and the Jaguar skill tag then being added to skills also has the bonus of giving you access to things like the Potent passive, which gives a stacking damage buff against enemies for every Jaguar hit that they take, or the skill that increases Jaguar skill crit damage as well, and lets you apply these to other Guardian tag skills as well, and it has further synergies in Paragon, but that's a bit out of the breadth of what I wanted to talk about today, just sort of keeping it a bit more basic. Third I'd say is Eagle, but it's more just because it's very niche. You can make a Storm Feathers build, there are a number of legendary aspects that support this and exist for this reason, but given the scaling involved with them, I would be surprised if a Storm Feather build ends up breaching the top 5 in power at least. The main reason that this has use outside of that very specific niche then is that it gives you a way to apply vulnerable when you evade. If you have no other way of applying vulnerable in your build, then this does have a niche role. That said, Spiritborn has a lot of options for vulnerable application, so if you're using your entire Spirit Hall choice for that purpose, that does feel like a bit of a mistake. Fourth up then is Centipede. This makes it so when you hit an enemy, they do less damage and gain a slow up to 8 stacks. At maximum stacks, that is 20% damage reduction and an 80% slow, which is actually pretty silly, honestly. The main reason that this Guardian would be considered good is because a 20% damage reduction is great to have, and it leaves room elsewhere in your build to gain more offense. Defensive stats basically have a bar that you have to hit with some amalgamation of class effects, skills, passives, gear, and paragon to let you survive in the content you want to do. If it is more effective to get defense from class stuff, it could free up space for offense later in your paragon, or so on and so forth. Gorilla is great for that reason too, and it is much better than Centipede for it, mostly because Centipede's damage reduction takes build up on each individual enemy, so it isn't applied until you hit them a number of times. So very simply, it is a weaker survivability Spirit Hall option than Gorilla Spirit Hall, and a weaker offensive option too. If this made maybe like every attack also apply poison to enemies, even a small amount, something like that, it could be onto something. There could be some room to wiggle with here, but it doesn't do that, so it's just sort of outclassed at the moment in what it does best, which is why I have it in the 4th slot. The other two middle ones have their own sort of niche, but this one is essentially just worse Gorilla with slows, but slows are also easy to get in other ways. Then we have the secondary Spirit Hall choices, which will go a little bit quicker. The best one by a good distance is Jaguar. This increases maximum ferocity by 1 and also increases ferocity by 1 stack whenever you kill an enemy or hit a boss. Each stack of ferocity is 5% attack speed itself, 4 maximum stacks by default, 5 with the Spirit Hall choice taken. You can overfill by 4 due to the Hunter ultimate skill which exists, which would bring you up to 9 stacks. You can also gain up to 5 more maximum stacks from the Duelist legendary aspect, which would give you 14 stacks with the overfill active. At 5% each, that's 70% bonus attack speed. Even without the overfill part, it's still 9 stacks, which is 45% bonus attack speed. And with the Spirit Hall applying stacks, even if you just hit a boss, not even only if you kill things, this is just a really good bonus in general. The secondary reason is the Harmony of Ebikawa unique helmet, which boosts skills per different Guardian Spirit skill tag that they have. So while Gorilla secondary Spirit is still quite good and will be second on this list, Jaguar is first partially because it lets you take Gorilla primary with that helmet effect and still get this as your secondary to get a maximum bonus for Eagle and Centipede based skills, which is what the very highest end build archetypes are going to look like as a result. With that then, let's talk about Gorilla. Increases maximum resolve stacks, which will directly translate into more damage as well, due to the Colossal glyph, which gives you 2% multiplicative damage increase per resolve stack that you have. Not to mention that this will also give you more damage reduction, because if you're focusing around resolve stacks, you'll also take the passive that gives you more damage reduction per resolve stack that you have on you as well. The other effect is if you have 5 or more stacks of resolve, you are just permanently unstoppable, and obviously increasing your maximum makes that easier to happen. This is a really good effect in itself too, and there is also a passive that boosts damage while unstoppable, which is a nice synergy with this as well. This also has a unique bonus of, well, the Loyalty's Mantle helmet now. This unique helmet gives you bonuses for having a matching Spirit Guardian in both primary and secondary slot, and again with Gorilla being the best primary, this gives us an interesting combo with that helmet that makes the base Gorilla stills just a lot stronger. Next up then is Eagle, and it's an interesting one for sure, increasing crit chance every 4 meters that you move, but then resetting 2 seconds after you actually get a critical hit. The main purpose this really has is for helping create like boss one-shot builds. You build 0 crit chance into the build itself, but then high crit damage in some capacity, run around beside the spawn altar until you hit maximum stacks of this effect for 100% crit chance for 2 seconds, spawn the boss and have that 2 seconds of full crits, and in most normal combat, it's sort of an anti-synergy honestly, because if you want to use this effect, it means that you like crits, you have crit damage, and that means that you will build other sources of crit chance as well because you want more frequent crits. But the higher that your crit chance gets, the higher the chance that this secondary Spirit Hall bonus won't actually get to build to any meaningful number before it resets, because you will be critting instantly if your build is good. Its other main uses though are leveling, where crit chance is a bit harder to come by, or Harmony of Ebikawa builds that want to use a Jaguar skill with the 3 tag bonus. Then finally we have the Centipede secondary Spirit Hall option. This gives you healing for each nearby poisoned enemy, and this actually does have some uses in certain builds. Specifically, there are a few Centipede chains of things that you can go down, like even just uniques like Jacinth's Shell, which drains loads of health, so the healing helps offset it, but it does reset your cooldown, so it's very worth using. Or the Bitter Medicine Paragon legendary node, which does damage to close enemies every time that you heal for 100% of your health. Or even something like the Starlight aspect that gives you resource when you heal. There are a few synergies for this for sure, but I just think that there are easier ways to get healing than this, and the other Spirit Hall bonuses are a bit more potent. Past that then, the main thing that I want to talk about is just these sort of core power increasers. The thing is that you will find underlaying any powerful Spiritborn build no matter what it is. I won't talk specific builds here as I have already done that in the past, and I will also get more in depth with those as the expansion releases properly. I mean, it's not like you can follow a build guide completely before you can even play the game, right? Instead, I want to just talk to you through the most powerful sources of power for this class to help you come up with your own builds instead. So you can theory craft some stuff yourself, and maybe even come up with your own ideal way to go about it, find what you enjoy playing. The first is the aspect that we talked about earlier, unyielding hits with armor stacking on your gear. This just adds an obscene amount of weapon damage, and weapon damage is similar to skill ranks, and that it increases the base layer that all other additives and multipliers calculate off of, so it is a really strong thing to increase to begin with. The next aspect of note is specifically Planes Power. This extends to Mystic Circles. Mystic Circles apply to 4 separate aspects, including this one, each aspect giving you 25% lucky hit chance to create the circle. Planes Power specifically adapts the circle when you use a Jaguar skill to increase your damage per stack of ferocity that you have currently. Earlier we went over how to get up to 14 stacks if you use the Hunter Ultimate. This thing on an amulet then can hit 7% bonus damage per stack. 14 stacks of 7% is 98% bonus damage, paired with the fact that you would already be benefiting from stacking ferocity due to the massive attack speed that gives you as well. As if that wasn't enough, there are tempering affixes and a paragon glyph that give you a stat called Mystic Circle Potency. This increases the effect of this legendary even further. The more Mystic Circle Potency you have as a stat, the more this damage increase will go up. It will scale even further and easily become your largest multiplier. However, generally building Planes Power as an aspect also requires building Sky Power as an aspect, which makes your Eagle skills cause the circle to move with you when you evade, and putting that on boots with evade cooldown reduction on hit. This is the true combo that makes it valuable, but it's pretty high investment to get there. Generally speaking, you wouldn't run Mystic Circles with unyielding hits as a combo because they are both very sort of stat hungry. You have to build around them a lot, and they don't overlap in what they actually give you, except for the Forest Power aspect, which is the middle sort of overlap between them because it gives you bonus armor and Mystic Circles. That said, generally speaking, unyielding hits is better while leveling, but starts to taper off around levels 50 to 60 as your weapon damage stat goes up very quickly, and your armor starts decreasing in how fast that goes up, especially due to armor getting penalties in each torment tier as you climb. At this stage of the game, and basically until you can stabilize your armor number above around 1500, I would say, Mystic Circles become a much better archetype to focus on as a general underlayer of damage boost. Once you are able to get back above that threshold though, unyielding hits gets better and it scales the best into the proper deepest endgame builds. The best part of all this is that this can apply to pretty much any skill or build concept that you want to build around in the game, because if you use Gorilla Primary Spirit Hull for any skill, it will trigger unyielding hits. If you have a Jaguar skill, you can trigger Planes Power for Mystic Circles. And it doesn't even have to be the main source of your damage either. That said, there is one more main sort of power that you want to be very aware of, a specific synergy between 2 uniques. The first is the Rod of Kepaleke. This is one of the uniques that Spiritborn is actually able to find even before level 60, which is funny because it's also the best scaling one long term that we have access to. What this does is turn our core skills into basic skills, but it still keeps the core skill tag as well. It makes the core skills no longer have resource cost, but lower their damage in response. However, whenever you hit maximum resource, your next core skill will consume all resource for a guaranteed critical hit, with up to 3% increased crit damage per point of resource spent. This by itself is insanely powerful. Even with the base maximum resource plus the minimum roll of it that you can get on the weapon, which is 112 resource, then that is a minimum of 112% increased crit damage multiplier with the worst roll on the actual unique effect, or a maximum of 336% increase with the maximum multiplier. Stack more maximum resource on top of that, and it can obviously climb even harder, stack other sources of crit damage for it to actually multiply upwards, and this thing just gets absolutely nasty. The main pairing that makes this a consistent damage machine though, rather than just an occasional engine for burst, is the Ring of the Midnight Sun. When you crit, you regain up to 50% of the resource spent in the last 2 seconds, and it also activates the passive effect of counterattack for free. With this combo of 2 items, you can get really consistent guaranteed crits with massively increased damage. Because you get the guaranteed crits, it will automatically just refill your resources, which gets you more guaranteed crits, which automatically refills your resources, and this can make any skill that counts as a core skill have extremely high potential as a result, whether it be the original 4 core skills, or Touch of Death when transferred into a core skill, or even Payback when turned into a core skill, though Payback awkwardly does not get its secondary bonus for resource consumed, as the weapon takes your resource before it calculates the rest of the damage. As well, this has insane synergy with the Prodigy's Tempo key passive, which makes casting 3 basic skills in a row give you bonus skill ranks, and casting 3 core or potency skills in a row reduce all cooldowns. With the Rod of Kepaleke equipped as your weapon, you have skills that are both core and basic skills at the same time, and so they activate both of these effects if you spam them 3 times in a row, which leads to a lot of strength and utility from the cooldown reduction as well. The other big thing with this combo of uniques is it easily applies to either the unyielding hits or Mystic Circle base of power that we just talked about as well, well, and these full combos with that worked in are what will make the best builds all the way from mid to late endgame for Spiritborn. That just about does it then for what I wanted to talk about today, everyone. Just a sort of introductory walkthrough on what Spiritborn is, what's particularly good, and specifically the bones that can make any build setup strong on this class to try and give you some inspiration to work out how you want to play the class yourselves. We'll have proper builds, of course, coming in the coming days and weeks, of course, but there's no better time than the beginning to just experiment and see what you enjoy personally. Like if you liked the video, subscribe to the notification bell for more, and most importantly, ladies and gentlemen, until next time, stay sweet.
Josh, Cotton, and Hollow with the videos, dropping the humor like a hammer on your tippy toes, bringing entertainment on a daily arrangement to take our insanity and turn it into entertainment. Yes, I said entertainment twice, to reiterate that it is nice to look into your faces on a mostly daily basis when you let us in your homes to make the whole world a stage. Goodbye.